Hello, fellow gearheads. If you're watching this, you probably are. Uh, I'm going to run through synchronizing the linkage, setting the linkage up on this Chrysler. All of them in this era is pretty much the same, including the 3-cylinder, except of course they've got another carburetor in here and 2 sets of this adjustable linkage. So to start up with here, I took both the throttle and the shift cables off to make life a little bit easier, put it in forward so I could move the throttle and all that. And I disconnected the link. Now I can turn the tower shaft. I disconnected the link between the tower shaft and the throttle cam, and I had to stop and get the goo out of them because somebody had lubricated them, and these is plastic running against brass and whatnot, and you don't need to lubricate it. It just makes a mess, a sticky mess. So one of the first things to check is this cam. You want to make sure that this surface here and the cam surface are running parallel. These are pretty easy to bend, and a lot of guys will stick a screwdriver in here and yank, or a pair of pliers and yank it off of this end and bend this thing. In fact, I had to straighten this guy out slightly. I just clamped one part of it in the vise and then used a square against the other edge and just gently tapped it with the hammer until I got these two surfaces parallel and took some of the twist out of it. Okay, first thing I'm going to set before I move the camera is the synchronization between the, we'll just flop this back out of the way for now, is the synchronization between the two carburetors, and that's adjusted here at this link. And the carburetors are spring loaded, and they'll return all the way back to the closed position with no load on them. It's kind of a safety thing, little spring here and here. So you want to loosen this up, and this clip sometimes will get stripped by overzealous folks, and you can put a nut on the back of it and tighten it up if that's the case. So I want to loosen this clip, and the way I do it is I grab this bottom link between my thumb and forefinger and push gently down on it. And I kind of picked this up from synchronizing multiple carburetor setups on cars. And then I put my finger on this little bendy thing here, this little bent up area, and I pull down gently on it, and I push down gently on it, and that takes the slop out of the pivot points. And then tighten it up to where it won't move, then grab this and tighten it. And it's not a lot of force on this guy, and you don't have to get crazy. If it gets loose, basically your top carburetor quits working. So you'll know that right away. So now the butterflies between the two carburetors are synchronized. And the next thing you have to do is set the initial contact point on the cam. Sometimes this is erroneously called idle, but it's really the base setting on the cam. Now this little screw right here that's got the roller on it, and you need to check the roller to make sure that's free. The screw is eccentric, so you can adjust the distance between the tip of the cam and the roller, and you have to get a here it is, small wrench. It gives you something to do with those ignition wrenches, which we don't really use anymore with all the electronic ignition out there. And slip it on this nut and loosen this guy enough that you can turn it. Be careful when you loosen this with the wrench that you don't put any of the torque that you're making back into this carburetor linkage here. You might bend something. And once you have that loose enough to turn, you have to bring this line that's on the cam. Now some of them actually have 2 lines, and you split the difference, use the middle of that. And you come down until, and let me grab the camera so you can see. Come down until that line bisects the head of the screw. Now that one's off a little bit because I just fiddled with it. Don't worry about where the slot is. That has no relevance whatsoever. does that line bisect the screw. So once you get that guy adjusted, which I'm going to do now, just bring it up and touch it. Oh, you want to get this nut tight enough that this moves with a little bit of friction. You don't want it slopping, and if you know, bring that up until it takes the slack out, and that's not right, so I got to bring the roller around. Not quite enough. Just a little bit much. So roller it takes. I can feel it when I turn it. It's taking the slack out right there. Okay, it's bisecting. Now here's the tricky bit. Get that thing out of the way. It's tightening this bugger up and not moving it. Expect this to take a couple of tries to get this right, because I think I moved it that time. Oh yeah, okay. Okay, let's move on. I'll fiddle with that off camera. All right, next thing you got to do is adjust the length of this link, and this determines your wide open throttle position. So since I have this all the way loose, I can rotate my tower shaft till it stops against the block, and then move this down as though I'm going to put it on the ball, but I just hold it there with my finger. And I want to look in the carburetors and tell whether the butterflies are indeed flat. And yes, they are. Really, the one you're most interested in is the one in the bottom, because that's the one the link drives directly. The other one might be just a taste off. So I'm going to shorten the length a little bit and try again. Like that. Make sure your tower shaft stays against the block. And look. And whoopsie, I overshot it. Oops, I'm leaping it. Wrong way. Need to go shorter. Yeah, remember which direction you're turning it. Ah, yes. There we go. All right, now you can snap this on here. Ouch. And gently, remember you got plastic parts here, gently tighten these two nuts up, which I will do later after I go back and set that. Check it again. Yep. You'll notice that when the roller is about halfway up this flat part at the top, that's usually about where wide open throttle is. And if it's not, start checking things for being bent. And now you can move your throttle stop screw, the idle stop screw, back against the block. Now, once you've done the synchronization move that I just showed you with the setting your eccentric, don't worry about where the eccentric is, because it's not an idle mark at all. It's a mark to coordinate the wide open throttle to the pickup of the throttle. It's a throttle pickup mark, I guess would be better, because then you will adjust your idle, you know, in gear and all that, warmed up in gear, about 750, 800 RPM with this screw back here. Now, where this mark is in relationship to the roller, it may or may not be setting right on that mark, but this engine is a pretty nice example, and it idles with the throttle blades just about shut. And if you happen to, you know, jack the thing up here to get it to idle, you need to look for problems. You need to go through your carburetors and make sure all the jets are clear, make sure your mixtures are adjusted, and these should be about always a base of 1 turn out and usually an 1/8 either side. This one likes almost a 1/4 turn above the base setting. If these needles are much off of a 1/4 turn, 1 1/4 turns from shut, and the idle's still not right, or you're having to set this really high, you have an issue somewhere you need to find. I mean, the motor could actually be just worn out. But anyway, this one idles really nice right there. So this is a lot easier to adjust than on my Mercury by a long ways. Very straightforward. Love these motors. They're really simple. So now, don't try to start and run this thing with the tower shaft loose. That's a really bad idea. So you need to hook your throttle linkage back up so the spring that's built in the throttle linkage will hold the throttle shut before you try to start it. Oh. I'm not going to fight that thing now. Well, I hope that makes it a lot clearer than the book does as to how to set these things.